So today we're talking about In Other Waters, and I do want to say this review is going to be completely spoiler free. As always, I'll stick to early gameplay to avoid story spoilers. Do avoid reading Steam reviews. When I read the reviews at the time, the top negative review ended up giving away a lot of the theme of the game. So I'll start with if this genre is going to be for you, and ignoring the gameplay, I think most of what there is to discuss here is the story itself. And that's the first thing I want to say, is that there really isn't that much gameplay to discuss. What you're currently seeing on the screen, that's kind of it. You have these two hubs. You have basically traveling around the world, which is what you're currently looking at. And then there's also a base that you can go to. You spend less time here. It's more about analyzing samples, reading up on the lore of the world, the marine biology, and so on. But that's basically it. Mostly the game is about the story. It took about an hour for me before the story clicked and I started feeling immersed in the game. At this point, I really started to feel attached to the character. The writing's good enough to do that in this game, and I think that the writing, together with the minimalist art style, sound design, and music's enough to keep you immersed. The game is relatively slow-paced and relaxed, so don't expect challenging puzzles from this. That's not really what the game is about. There's also a lot of flavor text in the game, but it's pretty clear what should be read and what is optional, so it's really up to you how deep you want to dive into all of the additional text that's provided. So in terms of what makes this game unique, I think it's like a very light version of Subnautica, but focused more on written story and your imagination's ability to fill in the gaps. There's very little focus on visual, sound, and gameplay, all of which, of course, is really strong in Subnautica, but as I said, this is not really what you're playing this game for. In Other Waters is more of a book than a game. If you don't like reading, you probably won't like this game either. There is a compelling central mystery though. The game may only have clicked for me after the first hour, but after the second hour I was completely hooked and I wanted to understand what was going on in the world. The story was interesting enough to make me want to see it through to the end, but it's very difficult to review the story without spoiling things. All I can say is that the moral that the story is trying to convey is nothing new, but the story itself is relatively unique. That's of course a bit subjective. I think the novelty really depends on what you've played, watched, or read before, and that's going to depend, or that'll determine rather, whether you think this is something really novel and interesting, or whether you'll feel that this is something you've seen before. But it's more likely that it will be the former for you. So let's talk about if it's worth your time and money, and I'll start with time. So it took me about 4 hours to play through the game, focusing mostly on the main story text. I think if you read everything that there is to read, it could easily be more than double that. It just really depends on, do you want to document and read up on fictional marine biology? And again, that depends. Some people are into that stuff, they want to see all of the lore. I think most people probably not, but that really depends on who's playing the game. Towards the end of the game, the navigation that you use does start to feel a bit old. I definitely won't be replaying this game, and that's not to say that it's bad. It is just one of those games that you play through once and you're done with it. So with that said, let's talk about whether it's worth your money. And I think the game's not very expensive, but even so, I'd recommend buying it on a sale. It has decent playtime, but I do feel like it could have been more involved. I understand the decision to stick to a simple graphical interface, but they could have gone further with the gameplay and sound design. This isn't much more than a visual novel. The story is good, it's well written, and some interesting mysteries to discover. The ending is fine, it's good enough, but it's nothing mind-blowing. All that said though, the game has a very positive reception on Steam, and if you're looking for a relaxing game with an interesting mystery to uncover, this is definitely for you. I'm happy that I played it, and if nothing else, it made me want to play Subnautica again. But I'd really be interested to hear from your side as well. If you have played this, what did you think of it? And as always, if you do like this kind of content, do like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next video.